Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Today we're looking at Novo Nordisk.
As usual, before we start, subscribe, like, and comment to this video to support the show. And if there's a specific company you want us to look into, leave it in the comments below.
So let's get into the analysis. For a lot of investors, Novo Nordisk is just one of the most compelling growth stories out there right now.
There really is.
And it's all driven by their total dominance in the GLP-1 therapy market. We've just been looking at their latest numbers, the Q1 2025 financials, and they show the momentum it's actually accelerating.
That's the key word, right? Acceleration. When you look at those Q1 results, the numbers are just massive. Revenue hit DKK 118.9 billion. So for everyone listening, just to put that into perspective, that's roughly $17.5 billion US, a 29% increase from last year.
For a company of this size, that kind of growth it's just exceptional.
It really is.
It tells you everything about the incredible global demand, but the real story is where that growth is coming from.
Right, the concentration.
Exactly. The metabolic diseases segment, so that's your Ozempic, your Wegovy, all the semaglutide products, that made up almost 89% of their total sales.
89%.
And that segment alone grew 34% year over year. This isn't just a hit drug. It's a whole franchise that's dominating their business.
And what I think is even more impressive than just the top-line growth is the quality of that growth. You can see this powerful operational leverage kicking in.
You really can.
Their margins are expanding to levels you just don't see in this industry. Gross profit margin is up to 83.8%.
And the operating margin is maybe the most important number here.
Right. It hit 47.1%.
And that 47%, that's a huge strategic advantage. It's a signal that they're mastering the efficiency of scaling up. They're keeping R&D and SG&A costs in check, even with this massive flood of revenue.
And when you get that kind of growth with those margins, well, you get a cash machine.
A complete cash machine.
Their free cash flow, the FCF, it surged to DKK 42.1 billion in just one quarter.
Which works out to an FCF margin of 35.4%. It's an incredibly profitable operation.
And they're doing it with a clean balance sheet.
Oh, it's impeccable. They got DKK 122.5 billion in net cash. This means they can fund all these huge multi-billion-dollar factory expansions themselves without taking on debt. It secures their lead for years.
Which is the perfect transition into their competitive advantage, their moat. Because that financial strength lets them build it wider and deeper.
It does.
And it sounds like the moat isn't just the drug itself, but really the logistics of making it.
That is absolutely correct. The biggest, most powerful moat they have right now is just manufacturing scale. It's a supply-constrained market, and Novo Nordisk controls over 90% of the global production of the core ingredient, the semaglutide API.
So it's not just that they have the recipe, it's like they own 90% of the specialized kitchens in the world that can actually make it.
That's a great way to put it. And analysts estimate that control gives them something like a 24-month operational lead time.
24 months. 2 years.
2 years before any competitor, biosimilar or otherwise, could hope to build these complex, sterile production lines and scale up.
And you can see that playing out in the market right now.
You absolutely can. That's why they hold around 68% of the U.S. GLP-1 market. Eli Lilly's Zepbound has great clinical data, but its rollout has been slowed down by these exact manufacturing bottlenecks. They just can't make enough of it.
Okay, so beyond the factory moat, let's talk about the legal one. The IP semaglutide's compound patent is solid until 2031 in the U.S.
It is, but the really interesting part is the patents around the delivery systems.
The pens, the injectors.
Exactly. Those device patents add another layer of defense, and they could extend that exclusivity out to 2035.
Wow, that's a long runway.
It is. And there's a third piece to this durability puzzle. Patient adherence.
Meaning that once people start, they actually stick with it.
They really do. Real-world data shows over 70% of U.S. patients on Ozempic stay on it for more than a year. For chronic conditions, that's a very high number. It makes their revenue streams predictable and, durable.
So since manufacturing is the bottleneck, let's talk near term. What are they actively doing to break through those constraints?
They're investing. And they're investing aggressively. They just announced a DKK 12 billion investment to expand their main facility in Denmark.
12 billion DKK, so that's about, what, 1.75 billion US dollars?
Correct. And that's going to add 50,000 liters of specialized GMP capacity by the end of 2027. It's a huge strategic move to meet demand for the rest of the decade.
And on the other side of that, they're working on distribution, which is just as important.
You have to get it to the patients. They've just announced these major partnerships with Amazon Pharmacy and CVS Health.
Right.
That's all about streamlining U.S. distribution for Wegovy and trying to smooth out those shortages at the pharmacy level that have been so frustrating for people.
And while they're fixing the operations, the clinical data just keeps getting stronger. That recent publication in the New England Journal of Medicine was pretty compelling.
Oh, it was vital. It showed, in the real world, patients were getting an average weight loss of 18.2% at 68 weeks. That's not a controlled trial. That's what's actually happening out there, which really solidifies the case for its effectiveness.
Speaking of expanding the case, the next big growth lever is the adolescent market. Where are we with approval for younger patients?
That is moving very quickly, and it's a huge potential market. The FDA has accepted their application for semaglutide for chronic weight management in kids aged 12 to 17.
So the clock is officially ticking. Do we have a date for the decision?
We do. The PDUFA date, that's the FDA's deadline, is set for July 28th, 2025. That is a major catalyst to watch.
And we're seeing similar momentum in Europe.
That's right. They got the positive opinion from the CHMP over there, and the final decision from the European Commission is expected probably in late June 2025, even before the U.S. one.
Okay, so that's the current drug. Let's look further out. What's going on in the pipeline? For a company so reliant on one molecule, what does the future optionality look like?
They're making good progress. They've got positive phase 2 data for a dual agonist compound, NN0443. It targets GLP-1, but also glucagon receptors.
And what's the target for that one?
It's for patients with NIH, that's severe fatty liver disease. The results were impressive. It showed a 14.2% reduction in liver fat compared to placebo. It's a huge deal for a disease that has very few treatment options.
And there's also major data coming that could expand the label for the current drug into a totally new category, cardiovascular health.
This is one of the most anticipated readouts of the year. At June AMA conference, they're presenting real-world data on cardiovascular risk reduction.
And what's the rumor on that? I've heard some pretty big numbers.
The chatter, and this is definitely speculative, is that the data could show a 40% reduction in MACE risk.
Okay, hang on. Let's clarify MPE for everyone.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right, so MACE stands for major adverse cardiovascular events. We're talking about things like non-fatal heart attacks, strokes, cardiovascular death. If they can prove a 40% reduction, semaglutide stops being just a metabolic drug. It becomes a cardiorenal and metabolic drug, which completely changes the game for prescriptions and reimbursement.
That's a total game changer. And internationally, what's the story in China?
The focus there is oral semaglutide. And there's some buzz that China's NMPA might grant it priority review status. If that happens, it could slash the approval time and give them rapid access to that huge market.
Let's touch on the really speculative high-reward rumors. I know there's talk about PCOS.
Yes, polycystic ovarian syndrome. The rumor is the FDA might grant fast-track designation for Ozempic to treat it. It's a massive potential market. Some say $25 billion annually. Fast-track would speed everything up.
And the other rumor is about distribution.
Right. We're hearing whispers of advanced talks with Walgreens for a potential exclusive U.S. retail deal for Wegovy. That would be a huge strategic move to tighten their grip on the supply chain.
Okay, we've covered a ton of bullish territory here. High growth, high margins. But we have to be balanced. What are the primary risks investors should be watching?
The number one risk is concentration. It's the flip side of their dominance. Semaglutide is almost 89% of their revenue. If a competitor comes out with a truly superior drug, that growth could stop on a dime.
And that leads right into the second risk, which is pricing pressure, particularly in the U.S., PBMs, and Medicare.
Exactly. You've got pharmacy benefit managers constantly pushing for lower prices, and then there's the looming threat of Medicare Part D negotiation. The word is GLP-1s could be on that list as early as 2026.
So prices are forced down. How do they defend their margins? Is that a major threat?
It's a serious threat, but they have two strong defenses. First is the pipeline we just talked about. They have 5 other GLP-1 combination candidates in phase 2. They're spending to de-risk themselves.
And the second defense is just the sheer volume.
Right. It's the elasticity of demand. The volume growth has just been overwhelming the pricing challenges. In Q1, for instance, net pricing only fell by 1.2% despite all that pressure. The demand is just so high that the volume more than makes up for it.
So for now, volume is winning the war against pricing.
It is. That's why the stock has performed so well.
Okay, so let's give the listener a roadmap. What are the key dates to circle on the calendar?
The first one is coming right up. The Q1 2025 earnings call on April 29th. The street is looking for revenue around DKK 122 billion.
But the really big one, the one for the long-term vision, is their Investor Day.
That's the one. The Investor Day in New York on May 14th and 15th. This is where management is expected to lay out their strategy for 2025 to 2030. We're looking for big targets, like maybe hitting 12 million patients by 2027. That will set the whole narrative for years.
And there's that one last regulatory trigger in Europe.
Yes, keep an eye on the European Commission decision in June. It's about reimbursement for Wegovy for obesity. A positive decision there could unlock over 50 million eligible patients in the EU. It's a huge deal for their international growth.
So if you pull it all together, the bull case is just incredibly strong. You've got the durable clinical data, a manufacturing lead that's years ahead of anyone else, and this expanding list of new uses, from NANH to adolescents. It really is a multi-year growth story.
It's a very clear picture, and with that Investor Day just around the corner in May, the big question for the company isn't really about demand anymore. It's about whether they can possibly build fast enough to meet this accelerating global need.
If you enjoyed this detailed look into Novo Nordisk, make sure you hit that subscribe button to catch all our future analysis.